Shannon Carter, and I'm the Executive Director here at AZ Spinal. And thank you guys for popping on and joining with us today. Annette is wonderful. If you haven't met her, she is just a champion for our community. And I hope you guys have a great conversation today. And welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon.
There's
It's so
a
nice
few
to see
faces
you.
I haven't met in person yet, so it's nice to see that.
Yes. Well, thank you, Shannon. Really appreciate that. Good. Oh, Nanette said she misses seeing me at the Mercury games. Oh, my word. You just missed my daughter, Leah. Oh, my goodness. She is so missing her Mercury. It is so sad. For those of you who don't know, Nanette and I are big Phoenix Mercury fans of WNBA. And my daughter, who is no more than 5 feet tall, is a star basketball player at her school. She wears number 3, like her favorite Mercury player. And of course, the WNBA is not going to be having fans while they're playing. And my daughter is heartbroken. She is completely heartbroken because she went to every home game. We even traveled to Minnesota to watch the Mercury play. So yeah, we miss seeing you too. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I really haven't had a chance to meet everyone. I know a few of you, but I really appreciate you coming in and joining this dialogue. Can everybody, because I would love this to be a dialogue, what I'd like to do is facilitate a discussion among all of us and hear everyone's experiences. So does everybody have their microphone on? Could I hear everyone or?
Yep, I'm good to go.
Okay, you're good to go? Is everybody else good to go?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good. Because I would really like us to share information and share how everyone's doing, number one. Talking about the psychodynamic effects of the COVID-19 crisis that we're all living in and how we are all trying to cope with the self-isolation and in this entire change in our social structure. This has been a very daunting experience for many. I mean, COVID-19 really has become much, much more than a healthcare, economic, or a social crisis. It's really resulted in increased mental health issues. And what I've been seeing in my practice is really an increase in people who've already had some issues with isolation and loneliness and maybe some mental health issues having a spike and an escalation in their symptoms. So for those of you who don't know me, I just like to share a little bit about who I am and maybe hear from you who you are. As Shannon said, my name's Annette Zacarri, and I am a psychologist I'm a master's in social work, clinical social work, and I have a PhD in health psychology. I have a practice in Scottsdale, and the majority of the people that I have the privilege of working with are individuals with different types of disabilities or chronic medical conditions or some type of life-altering trauma. And one of the things that I'm experiencing now within my practice with a lot of my clients is just this whole shift to telemed and online communication so that I can still stay connected with my clients. And that has been extremely difficult to do because part of our human connection is the ability to be able to talk with each other. And then, of course, the isolation that I also feel as a therapist working alone and not having that interaction and eye contact and observation, which is so important to really being able to facilitate assistance to clients, but also seeing that they are struggling too in their isolation and quarantine and loneliness from their home or their office or wherever we have an opportunity to meet. So it can be extremely isolating, and that's what I'm hoping that we can have a conversation about today. And of course, maybe offer some ideas or tools for us to continue to really meet the needs. One of the things that I think we must always keep in mind during this pandemic is that this is a double pandemic, a pandemic of social isolation and a pandemic of COVID-19. And I believe both really need to be addressed because while we're concentrating on what we have to do as far as dealing as a society with managing the infection rates and keeping our social distancing, wearing masks, and so on, we are also dealing with what that results in: isolation, loneliness, increased anxiety, increased stress, increased sometimes domestic issues, conflicts in the home, because who is used to being 24 hours a day at home with someone? Even though you love them, you're there 24 hours a day with them, and there it can increase conflict. The isolation of just not having that human connection outside of the four walls that you're living in. Getting out, but then seeing everybody wearing masks. That also is, what we're not used to. The fear of walking past someone. When I go out for my morning walk, it's amazing how we don't even make eye contact. Everybody just separates. So we're losing that kind of connection. So with that in mind, I want us to really have a discussion today about what you're experiencing and what you feel about everything that's happening. But I wanted to at least let everybody know who doesn't know me, who I am. And if we could kind of just get an idea of who's here with us today and a little bit about who you are, that would be helpful for our discussions too. And I think everybody knows Karen, but Karen, do you want to add anything?
Sure. For those who don't know, I'm Karen Halgren with the Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association. I'm the peer mentor coordinator and community resource specialist. I've been there almost 11 years. Longest time I've been anywhere in a job. I love it, absolutely love it. For me, I've been home since middle of March. Different place, I think I've gone out maybe 3 times, 4 times. It's, I love my alone time, but I miss the interaction with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Karen.
Because I'm a hugger. I love to hug people.
Yes, I know. And we're getting these different techniques of how to shake hands now. We can't shake hands, or air hugs. I'm hearing that, air hugs, elbow. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's different. Very different.
Very different.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Eric, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Eric Kenning. I'm a social worker that works at the Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association. I'm a caseworker, and I work, current projects are working with the opiate awareness program. I also work with the brain injury support group over on the east side with Annette Zacarri. And yeah, so that's me, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
It is interesting to deal with all this social isolation too. Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, thanks, Eric. And Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
Which Steve?
How many Steves do we have here?
You
I guess, well, you, the one we could hear.
My name is Steve Norton. I'm the Living Well coordinator at Ability 360. I'm very involved with the Spinal Cord Injury Association and the Brain Injury Alliance at Ability 360. I also facilitate the Brain Cave, which is a support group for men with brain injury. But I'm very involved with the support group that the Spinal Cord Injury does with Don Price, the men's group that I do. I write a food article for Livability magazine, which is the magazine that Ability 360 puts out. And social isolation has been very difficult for me because of the fact I'm a very social person, and being by myself has been really tough. So Zoom's become my best friend.
I'm sure. We're very fortunate that we have this type of technology to still have that human connection. Yeah.
And I live alone. I have no family, no friends that I live with, so I'm all by myself. That's been hard. I've been like Karen, I've been isolated since March 17th.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
But thank you for the work you're doing with the groups. You're very involved in the groups, the men's group, you said?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Are you holding groups on Zoom too, or is it?
Zoom, yeah, we did the Brain Cave on Zoom. Don does his support group on Zoom.
Oh,
And
that's
it goes
great.
really well. We're actually getting more people involved. People that could not make it to Ability 360 for their groups are coming in from Tucson, Pinal County. We had one guy that came from the Indian Ocean, a island out in the middle of the Indian Ocean,
Oh, that's cool.
I remember
which has
that
been
guy.
really good. We're finding we're reaching more people, which is nice.
That is wonderful. Wow.
Tell
Well,
their
we'll
wives
have to
to
see.
come to our group.
Yeah,
What's
we'll have
that?
to see.
Tell the wives to come to the ladies group.
Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, we need to get Don to make an announcement of that. Come on, Eric. Get Don to make an announcement.
I sent them the links to it.
Okay. I'll remind him next week, Karen.
Okay, thanks.
Well, there we have an opportunity to be globally connected then, instead of just locally. So that's wonderful you're doing that.
That's a good positive point with Zoom, I will say,
Yes.
in this pandemic.
Yeah.
And the last 2 weeks of March are really bad for me. Over the last 4 months, things have gotten much better for me. So I can't complain. I've got my health. I have a roof over my head. I have a bed to sleep in.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, Steve. And again, thank you for the work you do with the groups. That's really wonderful.
Absolutely.
All right. Now Shannon has left the building. So Timothy, would you like to share?
Run.
Yeah. Timothy, I see. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, actually, my is Timothy, just Tim. But
Somebody's,
Yeah,
excuse
this
me
is,
just a minute, Tim. If you're not talking, can you mute your microphone? We're getting back feed from some.
okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Anyway, here from Washington D.C. fall. I've been here about 7 months, I guess. I came here from DC specifically to be at Ability 360. So this has been a setback is the way I look at it. But I've got a roof over my head. There's a supermarket, 100 away. I don't have to worry about my rent or any making or just the daily things I don't have to worry about. I'm about a mile from the town lake, so I go out pretty much every day to get exercise doing that. But what I really miss is being able to work out on the weight machines at Ability 360. But that's going to be the way I look at it is that basically we lost 6 months or a year, who knows how long. My other concern is the long-term financial health of the Ability 360. I hope that we're going to be able to weather the storm financially. I'm not in a position to be able to do much, but I'm concerned about that.
Yes. Tim, I would imagine, that would be a huge concern for our entire community, that we want the Ability 360, which we've worked so hard to develop this community for all of us, and to have anything happen would be sad. We don't want that to happen. So we have to we have to take action and make sure it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, Tim. It's Tim. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And also for those of you who aren't going to be, we can't hear, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat area, that would be great too. We'd appreciate that. And Sharon, would you like to, Sharon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, since I'm out of space.
Yeah.
I'm Sharon Malone. I am the peer mentor specialist for the Spinal Cord Association. I'm also the Arizona ambassador to the Christopher Reeve Foundation, and a peer mentor for Ability 360 and so forth, and St. Joe's Hospital. So it's been tough with not being able to visit people in the hospital. They, have continued to, not allow us to come in. So we really do have to rely on Zoom with a patient, but of course it's, not entirely the same as in-person communication. And
Mhm. How do you handle it?
really will,
Yeah. How do you handle that, Sharon? Is it, do you connect people by
if I
Zoom?
have 3, what's that?
I said, how do you connect then your peer mentors? Is it just by Zoom?
By Zoom. Yeah,
Okay.
that's our only option. So it's, again, not the same, but it's better than nothing. But we haven't got as many calls or contacts from the therapists and so forth, just because they don't want us in there, so
Of
for
course.
safety reasons, of course.
Mhm.
Personally, I've got 3 kids, so being with them all the time has been a challenge for sure. But and it's really hard for me, I guess, because they're with me. Every other weekend they're with their dad, but when they're not with me, or they are with me, I feel like I'm not accomplished if I haven't taken them somewhere or done something with them, instead of them being on their iPads all day long, which they tend to do if when they're isolated. So that's the only way that they can communicate with their friends is through these same technology. So yeah, but I don't want to take them to the crazy airs and the trampoline parks or things like that, just because for safety reasons.
Sure.
I have my dad comes, my mom comes to help out sometimes, and that's hard because they're 73 and 74, so I don't want to expose them from us being out as well. So
Mhm.
whoops, I think I lost it there. So yeah, but we make do with what the best that you can, and that's all you really can do.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to being able to have those. All the social events have been canceled,
Yes.
and that again has been super tough on probably just, I think, everybody.
Mhm.
I was supposed to go for the first time going scuba diving because I just got my certification last year in September in preparation for this August trip, and that was canceled, and then it was postponed to October, and now they've said that's a no-go as well in October. So we'll have to see what 2021 brings us, and
Yes.
we'll see if I might be coming to your office now as remote learning is going to be happening for mental reasons. To teach a 5th grader, a 7th grader, now going into junior high, and a sophomore who's just about to get his permit and will be driving soon.
Oh my goodness.
So I got almost a 12-year-old, but she's a teen. I just say she's a teenager because she's already acting like a teenager.
Right.
So having 2 going through it is
Yes.
not exactly, my patience is not as good as I used to be.
Yes, I feel your pain. I know what you mean, but you're making some really good points, Sharon, that this isolation has really changed the way we interact with people in our lives. It's the way it changes the way we work. It's like every facet of our lives has changed, and it all comes to this place of learning to adjust, like you were saying, just adjust and change our lives in a way that we still can stay connected. But thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate it. Okay, and I think we haven't heard from Annette yet. Would you like to share? Introduce yourself.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. we
I've
can
been
hear.
standing, I have a standing desk, and I have been standing all day in webinars. I don't know if you guys saw, but we did a 20th anniversary of the ADA from 10 to 12 o'clock today. And
Yes.
so I'm kind of at a different computer, and it's good to sit down and kind of relax for a minute. I really feel for, you know, I belong to a grief support group now. My stepson passed away in mid-April, and going through that kind of grief in the midst of COVID has been just bizarre, just truly bizarre. You know, you need to be able to hold and hug your family, and even funerals that are, you know, 10 people max, you really are not supposed to touch anybody, is very weird. So it's been an interesting time. And one of the things I think, you know, not being able to see our grandkids has been the hardest part for us, to miss those hugs. And they have a hard time understanding it. The oldest one is 5.5. And so what we do is we're thankful we can Zoom. I'm so thankful for this technology. But my son will hug her at the same time my husband and I will hug, and we'll close our eyes and we'll imagine that we're hugging her, and she imagines that she's hugging us. And so we still have that physical. But I will say that, I mean, the truth is like a big teddy bear is also a really great thing to hug. And I don't think anybody is too old or too macho to have a big teddy bear. I think that physical act of hugging and feeling that is important. And so, you know, I agree. And I think, you know, in some cases, I think the people who are like, gosh, I just need to get away from my kids. And I think you're so very blessed to be able to have that time. So I know it's both. And having heard from other people who say, I live completely by myself and I don't have interaction with anybody, I'm you know, I'm sorry, because I can't imagine how difficult that must be. And so I feel for you, and I hope that if you don't already have a teddy bear, that you'll get a big giant teddy bear. Amazon will send it, keep it outside, decovidify it or whatever. But take care of yourself as much as possible, and connect obviously with other people in any way you can.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Actually, that is a wonderful recommendation, is to get a teddy bear.
Mm-hmm.
And just to share a story about teddy bears too, is I have a client who lost her father recently, and somebody made a teddy bear for her out of his shirt, you know, out of one of his favorite corduroy shirts, or no, I'm sorry, denim shirts. So she was showing me on Zoom this teddy bear she had, which was made of her father's shirt. And, you know, just because you, Annette, you were talking about losing, you know, someone very special to you. And that was very, very helpful for her. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because during the isolation of not being able to still yet have a service for her father has been extremely difficult, you know, because life is going on for us, even in our isolation, and even in the COVID-19 environment in which we now live. Not being able to have a funeral for someone who's passed away, and how heartbreaking that is, not to share that grief together.
Yeah.
And being able to console each other.
Yeah.
So the teddy bear idea was wonderful for her too. I love her
There he
teddy
is.
bear. Does everybody
There
see?
he is. He's huge. Big old giant teddy bear, super soft. Eric, by the way, it was, I appreciate what you're doing in terms of opioid crisis, because that's how my 23-year-old stepson died, was just pure fentanyl. So
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes.
the detective that came to the scene that day said he goes on these calls every single day.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
Just
fentanyl's the worst.
Mhm.
and it's just maddening.
Mhm.
So preventable. So appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a hard to get off of for sure.
Yes.
But it was the best thing that I ever did, because I really wasn't alert.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, we're sorry.
congratulations.
Yeah, really, truly, to be commended. That is a very difficult process to go through. So, but thank you, Nanette, for sharing. Is there anyone that didn't have a chance to introduce themselves? I know we have some folks that are kind of coming in late, but I don't hear anyone else. Okay. And of course, if anybody wants to add anything to the chat area, The Zoom chat group is we're more than happy to make sure that that goes up and we could answer questions or hear your comments that way too. So feel free to add anything to that. I appreciate it. And for those of you who introduced yourself and shared a little bit about those challenges you're having, again, thank you so much for that. Because what I'm sensing here is that balancing of COVID-19 really literally conflicts what makes our survival worthwhile. We need to stay socially connected in a meaningful ways. And that is actually essential to the human health and survival. So again, that's just that conflict of what the recommendations have been for us to social distance and to isolate and to shelter at home really does end up playing havoc with what we have as our lives of being meaningful and to survive. You know, it is also truly highlighted that, you know, not only the pervasiveness of what our social context, our social connection is about, but also the relevance of social context in our everyday life. And I think in your introductions, all of you touched upon it. You know, the relevance of our employment, working together. You know, Eric and Karen, you work together and probably meet more on Zoom than you do face-to-face.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and the groups, you know, Steve talked about the groups, Eric and I facilitate a group, you know, not being able to offer support, you know, in a meaningful way where you could have that spontaneous dialogue, and having to facilitate through Zoom has been quite a challenge. You know, so it has definitely highlighted the relevancy of our social contact. And of course, education. I think Sharon talked about her kids and being able to go back to school. And, you know, how does that going to look? And what do we do? And, you know, what guidelines do we follow? And, you know, just the fears and so on of what that looks like. You know, also entertainment. Annette said she misses seeing my family at the Mercury games. Entertainment, you know, that Sharon does with her children. You know, you say you feel like the weekend's missing if you're not bringing the children somewhere. So we have to kind of redesign what that looks like. How many people have changed their medical access to their medical care, you know, now at this point? Everything is now by Zoom. You know, I can't.
Telemed.
Or telemed, that's right, telemed, thank you, that's what it is. But talking to my doctor via telemed is really weird. I mean, has anybody had that experience yet? Too, is access to our physicians and, you know, through telemed. And from what I understand, I read an article that the insurance companies are beginning to like telemed instead of face-to-face physician meetings because they're more cost-effective. I don't know. I'd rather sit with my physician than talk to them over telemed, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's a half and half. I see that, you know, with my doctors, that some are telemed and some I was just at my primary physician just as a follow-up. I was in person. It was really nice being more in person and kind of talking, you know, than the telemed. And I don't know why, but I remember things more, like what I need, questions I want to ask, versus telemed. I seem to forget, like, oh, and I should have written it down. I'm like, crap, I forgot to, you know, ask that question.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole new world that we're living in. You know, also transportation too, you know, and travel. That has also changed tremendously. Oh, yeah. You know, so, you know, that could be very isolating as well, as we don't have access to the same transportation provisions as we used to have.
Even on vacations, like everybody had so many plans for this summer, and that's when a lot of people escape from school and parents, you know, like go away. And now everyone's too scared to go anywhere, and so that's been a hard thing I'm sure for a lot of parents and a lot of families that want to, and or even just people that want to travel and do a lot of traveling. It's kind of at a halt.
one of the things that I ran across is I think American Airlines. I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw this that American Airlines is denying people with disabilities on the plane at this
Yeah.
point. And then also the
Well, they suck anyway.
yeah, and then also the cost for a flight. I was going to try to fly just to Colorado, and the cost of flying to Colorado was just extraordinary. I mean, I literally paid for a rental car for an entire week, and it was sufficiently less than airplane tickets.
Really?
Yeah, it was like $800 for
Dang.
a round trip for two people, and just to go to Colorado. If I would have went to like the East Coast, it would have been over 1,000, and that's a lot. I mean, you know, I'm used to 250, 300, right around there, but so it was a lot, and really they'd have these deals that where they say, oh yeah, it's only $150. Well, if you bring any bag with you, that's another 50 to $100. You know,
Try Southwest.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
it's pretty
Southwest,
incredible.
I would say.
Yeah.
I just
But
text-
Southwest is restricting some places, you know, like Cozumel, only American and United were the only airlines that were allowed to go to Cozumel directly through, you know, into that. But Southwest does do it, but they were not for, you know, this particular time. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, they're trying to make their money. You know, they're losing passengers, so they've got to make it up
Yeah.
somehow, and that's, you know, having to charge for baggage, and that's just astronomical. But I am surprised that they're, because, you know, you hear, at least I'm hearing, that the flights are so cheap, but if it's, you know,
It's cheap until you bring a bag.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yes.
Any
and
bag.
I have to take, when I travel, I have to take pretty much my whole life with me, because I've got my shower chair, you know, that I take.
Well, they
all my
can't charge for medical.
Yeah,
though.
they're not
That's illegal
supposed to.
charge
I don't know if they, you know, I don't know if they do, but you know, it's, you're
Mhm.
tucking catheters and, you know, and all your medical supplies that comes with it. I always have a huge big bag, even for like an overnight stay, because I'm just thinking of what the possibilities and being prepared.
Yes.
I just
Yes, and
sent
another thing-
Southwest from Oklahoma City to here, and it was less than $400 for two.
Wow. Okay.
So it's in October, for October.
Mhm.
But
Well, right. Well, once again, another facet of our lives, which would be traveling, is so different. You know, I mean, especially when you have children and you have summer breaks and you do travel or visit family, and again, being isolated and not being able to see family, even, you know, family, you know, out of state that we go visit over every year. You know, and this year my family reunion was canceled. First time in 62 years that a family reunion was canceled. You know, so just that heartbreak, you know, of gosh, we, you know, every year we get, you know, 200 Italians together. And not this year. So
That sounds like a good food festival right
yeah,
there.
it was a great food. Great food festival. It's really good. It's in so many people that we now have to start wearing name tags because nobody knows who each other is. But, you know, again, that's another issue that you were all talking about, is travel and family and getting together. You know, and you know, with social isolation and loneliness, even prior to COVID-19, many people experienced isolation and loneliness, but now it's even more so. And you know what, I think you were saying, Steve, too, that means like no contact, limited or no contact, human contact for months, and that decreased interaction outside your home. That is, plays such havoc on who we are as people, social people. And even, you know, folks I work with who define themselves as introverts are beginning to find this very disturbing. You know, they go, I like my own company. I don't mind staying home alone. But what has now happened is our choice has been taken away. of I want to be able to go out, I want to be able to travel, I want to do all of these different things, and we have to now do them very differently. Or if there is an underlying medical condition, which a lot of people I work with have, there's a lot to consider when you do expose yourself to COVID. Let me stop there for a discussion about that. Is why should we care about social isolation? I mean, why is this important? That we as a group and a community, through the Spinal Cord Injury Association, brain injury, or the disability community, why do we need to care about social isolation, and why do we need to care about, exposing ourselves to a potentially deadly virus? I don't know about everybody here in the group, but I've already lost 5 people in my life to COVID, and I have one friend now who's in ICU at Banner on a ventilator. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
thank you. The heartbreak is unbelievable, and not being able to see him or to offer support, and his wife only could call and have the ICU nurse, kind of pantomime. He tries to pantomime a message to his wife while they're on the phone. It's heartbreaking. But again, somebody with an underlying condition was exposed and now in critical condition. So I just wanted to throw that out as a discussion as we discuss the psychodynamics of COVID-19 and social isolation. Why, as our community of individuals with disabilities, why is this important? Why do we need to care about this? Let me throw this out to you guys. Oh, and again, anybody who'd like to add a comment on chat, please do so.
This is Steve Norton.
Yes.
I think so many of the disabilities in the groups I'm talking to, they feel they have an underlying condition, but they're not sure if they do or not. Because their lungs weren't affected by their injury, but some people's lungs were. I had a stroke, which is brain injury based on blood pressure and diabetes, which are 2 of the biggest underlying conditions. My doctor says I'm so low risk because I have it in such good control now, and I've lost all the weight that I used to have. But I talked to other people, and we don't know. I have friends that were in accidents 20 years ago that affected their lungs, but they don't know how are they healed now. They've never paid attention to that because they went on living life. But how scarred is that lung from that accident, So yes. I think people, all of us with disabilities, have that underlying thought: if I get this, is it going to take me down because of my disability?
Yes. Thank you, Steve. Good comment. And that's, a very good reason why we need to care about this COVID-19 and the isolation that we have to keep in mind if there is an underlying condition that you could be exposed, because now we're seeing that people with underlying conditions are more susceptible to not recovering as well. So anyone else would like to add to that?
Yeah. And so for me, I just found out about 2 months ago, they diagnosed me with asthma. And when I got injured, I had one lung collapsed and one got punctured. So my lungs are shot pretty much. So I haven't gone anywhere. It's just,
yes, exactly. Exactly.
This is Eric. I found that going to the grocery store is almost traumatic nowadays, because you have a lot of people that are not wearing masks, that are not social distancing. It seems like that is, if I had to say the war zone of COVID-19, I would say the grocery stores, because people are just all over the place. And, they're trying to limit the people that are going into the stores, but like Costco is doing that, and they require face masks. But I go to Fry's, and 1 in 5 is wearing a face mask, and we're all standing next to each other. It can be 6 people in an aisle, and I find myself avoiding certain aisles and literally going the long way around and trying to figure out ways around people, because I have no idea what their condition is. I just don't. And I have very healthy lungs, but why would I take that risk? I put a face mask on, and it protects me, protects them.
Mhm.
And so, but I can feel myself mentally preparing every time I go into that social situation now. And so in isolation, it's an interesting dynamic, because in isolation, I mean, I have a partner, so I'm married. So we help each other out, and we're actually closer because we're both working people, and so we've actually got to spend a little more time together. However, it's that not being able to reach out and go see other people, like when I go to the office, I spend the whole day in the office practically alone. And it's nice. It's nice to be validated why I'm there. I mean, to be genuine and honest, it's nice to have validation, to be like, okay, there's a reason why I'm doing this, and so there's some of that frustration, because I get a lot of meaning and purpose out of interaction with people. It helps me to identify with my role in the world. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes. Actually, Eric, you bring up a really good point, and Steve too. One of the things about that social internet interaction and connection is validation. Because you do get the body language and the high fives or the hug, or just that sense of appreciation. When you are in a social situation or social dynamic. But then again, too, the fear, that, like Karen was saying, she has asthma, and Steve with diabetes, that you do want to be very mindful of those underlying conditions and what that could mean. That is very, very frightening to, be in a store and see that no one is wearing. And also, just the anger, too, that sometimes you see when you are out and about in different situations. I had a client who told me that a store she was at, somebody came in and knocked over all of the stands that had masks on them, that they're up at the front at Fry's. And she said he just was knocking them over and was so angry. And I said, I assumed he wasn't wearing a mask. And she said, no, he wasn't. But that is, that's fearful, when you see that, and there's anger and frustration and all kinds of losses that people are experiencing, and sometimes that comes out in anger. We had let's see, Steve Zacarri wrote, Fry's has a click option, so you don't have to go into the store. They even load up the car with proper distancing. So that's good to know that we don't always have to go into Fry's.
I think Fry's, Eric, too, is one of the stores on the 30th. They're going to require face masks, just like
really.
Just
Good.
like
Yeah,
Costco.
I think Costco, and I heard Target and Walmart now too.
Walmart, and I think Fry's is included in that too, on the 30th of this month.
Good. Yes.
Here, I think one of the things that we're going to see, I think we're already seeing, is more and more people saying, I can't wear a mask because of a disability. And the truth is that in some cases, a person can't wear a mask because of a disability. Variety of reasons. But I think we're going to find a lot of people who are going to say, I have a disability, quote unquote, just because they don't want to wear a mask. And that's what we're doing with, from a venue side, is what do we do when somebody says, I don't have to wear a mask? And because I have to, all of a sudden. And it's going to be a challenge.
Yes, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see where that person went out and actually made a little card that looked like it was an ADA card, and it gave them permission not to wear a mask, but it wasn't, it was all fake?
Yes, I did hear about that. Yes.
So we're trying to educate businesses overall, and encourage them to take a look at that, because there is no little card, it's not valid. And so then what it comes down to is, what are the questions you can ask? Well, you can't ask a person, what is your disability? And so what we're training them is asking a question. For example, do you have a medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask for long periods of time? If they say yes, then we can say, are you able to wear a mask for a short period of time? Or are you able to stay social distance? Or is there another way that we can serve you? And so I've kind of put together this almost like little flow chart based on what their people's responses are. But again, it's going to be really difficult because being an insensitive jerk is not a disability, and yet there are people who are, they just simply are not considering the impact that they could have on other people, and they're claiming disability, and businesses don't know what to do.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that strikes me is, you know, when people are angry and they're doing whatever they're doing, you know, that could be their response to isolation. That could be their response to, you know, I'm sick of this. I can't handle it. I can't deal with this anymore. I need some attention, whether it be negative or positive. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, I don't think that's uncommon that people are going to do that.
And
Yes.
I think overall, we're going to find, whether you currently have a disability or not, I think what we're going to find is that mental health needs are going to soar.
Right.
Absolutely soar. I worry about our kids who don't understand what's happening. I worry about our elderly. I mean, there's just, and then you're bombarded all the time by the news. It just reminds you that this is all really quite discouraging. So
Yes.
yeah, I really hope that there's going to be a whole lot of money put into the absolute skyrocketing increase of mental health needs that people are going to have overall. And you're right. In some cases, it's just anger. People just don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys were talking about, you know, getting out, and I know that, you know, we've canceled a lot of plans to either going out or coming in, or people coming in. We found that going for a drive is really helpful, and just drive up through the mountains to kind of get away from the heat and change your scenery. But in some cases, whether it's a campground, and there's, you know, for accessible campgrounds, for physical access if that's needed. You know, obviously, if it's an accessible campground, we know that that does not necessarily mean that it is. So really asking the right questions about what features make it an accessible campground. But boy, it's good to be able to get away like that and just be among nature. And so what we found is that we have gone camping is that there's other people and they're camping over there, and everybody kind of waves, and there's still this sense of awe, being able to get out and breathe some fresh air and get away from this bloody heat.
Yes.
So, you know, find other creative ways to kind of get out.
Thank you. That's a very good suggestion. Very good way of coping. But it does, you know, I mean, I think this was a great discussion because it does bring out the question of why should we care about social isolation, and why is that important? Why is it important, and why does it need to be cared about? Because of all of that we're seeing, and Eric, you make a very good point, because part of social isolation, and Annette too, it does increase mental health issues. Even for people who don't identify with anxiety or depression, it's becoming much more prevalent for many people. And we have to really care about social isolation for that reason, because it manifests in symptoms of anger, frustration, irritability, shortness, you know, and becoming extremely taxing emotionally, where there is these acting out types of behaviors. So we do want to care about it, you know. And in addition to the mental health issues too, there's a risk of some physical health issues, you know, and you know, in our disability community, people have medical health issues in addition to their disability. But increased stress increases blood pressure and increases those stress hormones, and it increases inflammatory responses. You know, so these symptoms increase risk of then exacerbating chronic conditions. And it could jeopardize recovery and healing, because you know, actually injuries are still happening. And, you know, people are, you know, not only are we dealing with COVID, but we're dealing with also injuries that continue to happen because Dr. Kwasnika's office is still referring patients to me that have been injured within these last few months, who have had much harder time of healing and recovery because of the stressors that are happening around them. So we want to look at both physical issues as well as the mental health issues, because they can be exacerbated. For some of your experiences, for the folks here in our group, you talked a little bit about some of the conditions that you worry about, that of being exposed. Can you talk a little bit about some of your concerns or what that does for you emotionally when you think about, the possibility or the exposure or the fears, if you are comfortable discussing maybe some of that with us?
I think, as I mentioned before, it was, I have parents that, are elderly, and, the thought of them having to go into the hospital, and it's really about you can't even be with them, makes it even, worse that you can't, no one's allowed to be with those patients and be with them and encourage them, and you're relying on nurses that you don't know what's going on, and communication between a head nurse or someone. That's that's the scariest part for me. I know the kids I'm not as worried about, because as kids, we tend to get exposed to germs all the time. So even at school, so when they're around friends, they all touch everything, and everything seems to. But it's my it's my parents that I worry about the most. That and the people that I interact that are more immune compromised. That I don't want to take the risk of even maybe asymptomatic but we're maybe carriers, and that's a fear as well. So that's always going through my mind, no matter where we're going.
Yes.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely, and I also agree. Like with the whole, I'm not only like in the family unit. I mean that could really be a conundrum, if you will, because I mean you have to worry about who's helping who out, or like what if what if you need help, what if this goes not the way you planned, what if something comes up, so that definitely is a concern that exists within the family unit, but also trying to stay away from the politics as much as possible. But what if with the whole within the disability community, of course this is very real, and with whatever underlying conditions one may have, it still exists that the disease, the COVID, might very well not manifest the same in everybody, with a disability, without a disability. And what I've noticed is there's the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I have not noticed that as much as others, as much as I would like. And I keep on trying, I haven't given up, but and I also have social work training too, more like macro social work. So when I think more in their group terms, and it's more like I have that resiliency kind of that social workers usually have. They bounce back, right? So and that's what brought me into the field, was that it's a really great field. And so I'm always, trying to look on the bright side, trying to be, that one that brings people together. And I'm wondering if, this whole divisiveness of oh, it's a threat. Oh, it's not a threat. Oh, you should wear a mask. Oh, you shouldn't wear a mask. I'm wondering if it really drives people away from, oh, so-and-so has a disability, they're even more fragile than we thought. If you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that I also thought of when you brought that up, Jay, was caregivers. I know a couple gentlemen who require caregivers, and they are having some serious difficulties because either, you know, they're full-time nurses that are, you know, have been around COVID patients, and then they let them know, and they're like, I'm sorry, I just don't feel comfortable to be a caregiver at this point because I don't want to give it to anyone with the possibility of me getting it. Or what happens is, you know, they test positive, or they're just, some of the nurses are just scared, you know, they're just like, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this. I have no idea, you know. And so people who had access to caregivers are having a really hard time. They're really struggling with this right now. And a lot of, I'm finding out a lot of family members, a lot of close friends are having to get involved to help support the necessary needs of people. So it's become interesting.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. Both great points. Thank you, Jay. Very good point. You know, Steve can't speak, but I know he's still listening, I think. But, you know, he is one of the individuals with disability that requires caregivers every day that come into his home and help him, you know, get into bed and get out of bed and take care of him all through the night. And I think one of the scariest things that happened to our family was when he called me up and said one of his caregivers contacted him and she tested positive. And, you know, that brought in such amazing amount of anxiety and fear coursing through me. But she stayed away. She's not working with him now. But that in and of itself, for somebody, you know, with a disability who needs assistance, and, you know, in order for them to be functional, they need somebody to come in and take care of them, or to assist them in taking care of themselves, I should say. And that is something that is very frightening when you think about it, because with Steve, his lungs are compromised. And, you know, if he, you know, as Jay was saying, this virus manifests itself in different ways and people have different symptoms. But if you do have an underlying condition, and because it's more respiratory and, you know, yeah, respiratory, I think, is the key. That, you know, if you do have compromised lungs, like Karen was saying earlier, that's very frightening when you have a caregiver who tested positive. So those are things, and thank you for bringing that up, because as a community, those are things that we need to be mindful of. And at the same time, you know, again, a need that is out there for folks that we work with or that we live with. And how do we cope with that, with that extra issue in our lives?
Yeah, because
I think that's an issue, the anxiety of someone being that close to you too all the time. You can't social distance.
Exactly.
I require a caregiver for housemaking services, like changing my bed, doing my laundry, things like that, because I can't do that with my disability. And the first 2 weeks I said I can do this, and I just went crazy trying to do it. I was in more stress. The anxiety level was so high on the chart. My family was like, Steve, you're going to have another stroke. You've got to relax.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally had to take a deep breath and allow someone into my home that I trusted. And my one caregiver, I trusted her very much because her brother had a disability that ate away his skin. He had an autoimmune disease, and she had to be so hypervigilant with sanitation growing up with him. She was very much like that. So I felt safe. But then she couldn't do it all because she had other people she was taking care of. She bit off more than she could chew to help me out. So she had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And my other caregiver I had before that, he used to take 3 forms of public transportation to get to me. I said, no, that's not going to work. So because he has lung issues too, so he's very vigilant. But I called him and we worked out an arrangement that I go and pick him up every Tuesday and Saturday and take him home. And he sits in the back of my van. He wears 2 masks. He changes his clothes even when he gets to my house. Puts on new clothes, sprays his shoes. I come in my office. I stay in my office. He cleans my house, does everything he needs to do. Then I take him home. So I feel very safe with him in that respect. But it was a whole psychodynamic in my head trying to figure this all out.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And I have friends just like Steve that need someone to get them in and out of bed, shower them, toilet them, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So how do you maintain social distance, you know? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, and also being a family member, Steve being my brother, when I go take care, help him take care of himself, my fear is, okay, who did I see? So I'm hyper vigilant. Did I run anywhere? Did I get close to anyone? Did I go to the store? Make sure that I'm very safe, washing my hands and doing all the things I need to do, because I'm so fearful of bringing something to him too. So, all of it is, it's frightening. And that's something we have to be mindful of, because, we're quarantined, the quarantine, the social isolation brings on a lot of issues, as we were talking about. But then we also have that other side of it too, where we have to, as a disability community, be very careful of what we're thinking about, and what choices do we need to make, and what's going to be in our best interest and well-being. So, absolutely. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I just want to say,
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
I've been thinking about this. My disability really has prepared me for this whole situation. Going back to when I originally became paralyzed, my family lives in Los Angeles. I was in Washington, D.C., and most of my friends were working, weren't in the area. So I was in the hospital by myself for months. I had caregivers taking care of me, but basically, there wasn't anybody by my bedside, and I knew that if things got worse, I was going to be by myself when I died. So, and even then, this is really sort of reminded me that basically we're powerless. There's not really much we can do. I'm concerned. The only concern I have is, when I get in the elevator in my building. Early on, I asked the management, I said, when I put up a sign that says 1 person per elevator, because I don't want to get in an elevator with other people. So they, a day later, they say, okay, that's a good idea. But, my concern is if I end up getting this thing and I become really violently ill, I'm not going to be able to take care of myself at home. I'm independent, but if I end up having to go to the hospital, then it's, I'm not worried. I just know there's not a lot I can do. On the other hand, I'm very grateful for, like I said, the last dozen or so years has really prepared me for my own. I realized that pretty much I do have some support, but basically I've had to live on my own by myself for a long time. And the other thing, the one thing I'm really grateful for is the timing. If I was still living back in DC, my apartment building, the power went out because of these storms they had a couple of nights ago. My power would have been out for a couple of days. They had to shut down some of the metro stations. So living in that place was really not good for me anyway. That's why I moved out here. And I got out here and got settled just in time, because if I had to move out here now, it would just be incredibly difficult to do all the stuff I had to do to get in position. So I'm very grateful, because basically the situation that I'm in, I live by myself. There's a grocery store like a block away, so I have access to food. I'm able to pay my rent for however long. So, I look at it as like, it could be a lot worse. I could be a lot more compromised. So I'm very grateful for the situation I'm in, and I don't take it for granted.
Great, thanks, Tim. Wow, appreciate that. Appreciate your words of wisdom. Was Jay? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, just to add, I think everybody's making really great points, and it just kind of makes me think of how to combat the fear, and I think a lot of the fear is not only this unknown COVID-19, but also what kind of adds to it is this fear of we need to really bridge the gap, because not everybody is on the same page. And I think that this is nobody's fault, but I see lots of outreaching. Yes, that's very good, but also lots of preaching to the choir. So my big thing is, how do we branch out more and not as much preach to the choir? kind of bridge that gap so that there's less fear and more same page.
Yes, that would be nice if we were all on the same page about this. So, but yeah, thank you. That's a good point. And, one of the things we need to think about it, social contact, social connection is fundamental to our lives. So distancing and surviving means that we have to find new ways of coping. We have to find new ways of dealing with the conflict that we're in. As Jay was saying, that we're in a society that are free thinkers. We have that liberty to choose and to think the way we like to think and believe the things we want to believe. And that's what, is part of our American society. And you do have to think about then, well, what does that mean when we have a public health crisis? And what does that mean when, we have these diverse ideas and these differences on how to best address it? But because, a lot of folks in our disability community are finding themselves needing to socially isolate and physically distance themselves, the same things that we used to do to cope pre-COVID-19 are really no longer available to us. And as Sharon was mentioning about bringing her kids out, there's closures of things that help us stay socially connected. There are social activities that we no longer have access to. And, I think it was Steve was saying that the Ability 360, that's shut down. There's nobody, we can't go work out, at the gym. So those things that have kept us connected and healthy. And I don't know what that was, it scared me. But the things that kept us socially connected are the things that we don't have now. I think we could probably talk for hours though on what we need to do to kind of get people all on the same page though, Jay. That's a tough one on, how do we work together? The one thing I feel though is taking action, is having forums like this for us to talk, having opportunities to continue to be very socially active. And I know Annette is very socially active and trying to put out, relevant guidelines on how businesses might be able to help. So maybe we could all be on the same page. But, one of the ways of coping that I feel is that taking that social action. And we have a few social workers here sitting in this little forum. And that's what we're all about, is social action. And that means, what do we do as a group that, can support the work that Annette's doing to have businesses all be on the same page with this when it comes to social distancing? And how do we handle when we have somebody who's angry and not willing to make the changes that need to be made? There's a lot of things that we have to think about. But I wanted to talk about maybe a little bit more about coping. We have about 45 minutes left to discuss ways of coping and how to handle the social isolation and how to, be able to continue to live and survive while we're going through this epidemic. And I see Dave Carey has joined us. Hi, Dave. Yep, I see you. Okay. Yay, he's here. It's nice to see you. I don't know if I can't hear you, but I could see you. I don't know if if you're muted, but yep, Dave Carey is with us. Nice to see you. But anyway, just talking about coping now. What have some of you learned, before we get into some, more details, what have you learned or for your own well-being, for your own families, of developing different coping strategies? What are some thoughts?
So for me, I know I've been taking them to even just to the park, just getting out and getting fresh air. When there's no one else around but us, we may go later at night and play basketball, or just get out of the house, or just, hey, get off your iPads, let's go on the trampoline. And I can sit there and, I may not be able to jump on there with them, but I can scroll through all my emails and check all those while they're getting that social least time together instead of being so isolated, because they're all each individually in their own rooms with their door shuts where they don't even interact with each other, that it's like, get out. We just have to go somewhere. I personally still go, even though they have like the Walmart pickups at the grocery store, I still go out and do my own grocery shopping just to get out, or do my physical therapy twice a week. That's kind of my way of coping and getting out of the house. And they're old enough to stay on their own, and to babysit, have my oldest son babysit, and just for that couple of hours, that it just gets me refocused and kind of like almost like a reset button.
Good suggestions, good ideas. Anyone else? What have you learned? What are you doing to cope?
This is Steve Norton. For me, it's routine. I got myself into a routine. Every day I get up at the same time, eat a really good healthy breakfast, then come in my office and start a routine for the day. And then at night I have the same routine, my time to relax, time to catch up with friends on the phone or Zoom. I do Zoom dinners, Zoom lunches with people, which is like eating with them at a restaurant. You're just in your own houses. It's kind of fun. I've started educating myself more, getting on free webinars online just to learn stuff, which is interesting. Good. And also getting outdoors at least once a day, whether it's just rolling around in my apartment complex where I live. There's some beautiful fountains that birds are always playing in. I go sit by the fountains and look at the fountains, look at the birds. I also turn to my faith personally too as well to help me get through it. Okay. So it was a matter of process over the weeks, developing what was going to work for me for my new normal. Like Sharon, I go for a drive. Sometimes I just get in the car and drive.
Yes.
I do what I call drive-bys. I go by friends' houses and they sit in their front yard and I sit in my car and we talk. But they're in the yard, I'm in my car when it was cooler, that was nice.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Good suggestions, really good suggestions. And one Annette brought up too is, maybe going up and driving in the mountains too, and getting out, getting away from this god-awful heat, So good suggestions. Actually, I just went to my first drive-by graduation party, where, one of our friends graduated this year from high school, and she was standing in her front yard in the evening with her cap and gown she was wearing, and everybody drove by, and we, had her gifts and handed them to her and just said hello. And she gave everybody, she set up all these glasses of different beverages and a piece of her graduation cake. So we picked up our piece and, said our hellos. So yeah, being creative, like you were saying, is developing activities where you are creative and you're still doing something meaningful. So anyone else that wants to share some of the things you've been trying and doing? Okay. Gosh, good suggestions, really good suggestions. One of the things that I would offer to a lot of my clients that I'm working with is sometimes just restructuring how you think about this. Cognitive restructuring for the social workers here in the group. But, just thinking about it, this entire episode differently. For example, instead of saying we're social distancing, we're physically distancing. And to always remind ourselves that we are still connected, even if we are not, even though we're apart and there's this distance, we are still connected. We are connected as people. And what could that look like? And those were some of the suggestions that some of you brought up. How could we still remain connected while we are physically distancing ourselves from each other? And then also the restructuring on how we think, our perspective of this. One of the things we hear over and over again, this mantra is, we're all in this together. Well, if we look at it in that frame of mind, then we are helping each other by being physically distanced, by being creative, by finding other ways to continue to connect, by finding other ways to feel connected. And Steve, I love your idea of just getting out every day and going for a walk. I think Sharon also talked about it too. It's just getting out, going for a walk. And it's okay to go for a walk. You know, there isn't anything that's stopping us from going for a walk. We can go for a walk, go for a jog, you know, exercise in the park, you know, whatever we need to do, as long as it's, you know, not during the high temperature time during the day, but definitely being able to get out there. But, you know, perception, again, is something that is so important for us to think about. And Jay brings up this very important point of not bringing in politics into any of the discussions, but perception. Perception is so important. And how do we change how we see this in a way that makes this pandemic and the isolation and the stress and the anxiety and the fears and everything we're feeling to be able to continue to survive this and to be there for each other and to still stay connected. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's very hard to rethink something, especially when our anxiety is high. You know, and I have to say,
I can tell you I'm enjoying the less traffic for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a change in perspective
So,
too about this.
Thinking of the positive things of all of it. There's
Yeah.
a lot less congestion, and that is what's nice about the air is that, you know, is not as polluted as it because there's not as much, you know, driving that people are doing and getting out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yes, please.
I think screaming every once in a while is a good thing.
Okay.
Just screaming once in a while, because this is frustrating. At the same time, recognizing that laughter is so very important. And then I think, you know, in terms of looking at the bright side of things, one thing I can tell you is that businesses are looking more and more at hands-free, touch-free. And what I've been saying is, this is great, because if I can have more automatic door openers put in, like, no, we don't have the money for that. Well, you know what? You're finding it now. Automatic paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, sinks, toilets. Yeah. Think about how many things that can be difficult to operate if you have a difficult time with your hands. And now they're going to be more touch-free, which I see as only a great thing for people who have a difficult time with mobility. And so I'm cheering for that. And from what I understand, I don't know how widespread this is, but I know of at least some cities that they've gotten COVID relief money or something specifically for that purpose of touch-free, which is universally designed, disability friendly anyway. So hopefully, you know, through time, we're going to do more and more of that. And it just helps us all recognize it. Well, just say we know the importance of universal design and the benefits, but many of them don't. I think, and in regards to what you were talking about earlier in terms of awareness, I appreciate Karen sending me the invite for this. But the truth is a lot more people need to hear this. And I think one of the things that I've heard some people say is, you know, we see these numbers every single day. And we just see these numbers, and it saturates your mind with all of these numbers. But I think so often we don't hear about the person and that person and that person. And I look at the grief that we went through with our son, and that's one child. That's one child too many, obviously. Every single one of these numbers is one family. And the ripple effect of each of those families. But again, I don't think we hear the stories enough. So I would love to see more of the personal stories. If some of these people out there, angry or not, some of these people out there who are saying, I have the right not to wear a mask. But if they heard the personal stories and the personal fear from people who are living through some legitimate fears and who have lost somebody, I think that would help them recognize that regardless of any politics you might want to express about your beliefs and your rights, that when you recognize that we are truly talking about real people, I think that might help change things. And and just there needs to be education. So I know, you know, when we did our ADA summit earlier this afternoon, we Facebook streamed it throughout. And we got, I think we figured we had well over 1,000 people who tuned in. That's fantastic. So I'm wondering if as you guys are meeting, and some of these are things are being shared, obviously with permission that, you know, everybody's streaming live, you know, getting this out to the public more through different medias, I think would be helpful, because there's a whole lot of people who need to hear what's happening, what we're talking about.
Yeah, agreed. I think Eric and Karen, that's something that I think a vision that you have in mind of being able to do that with your community. Yeah, absolutely.
We are, you know, we're definitely holding more groups. You know, we're also trying to get people just more involved on the Zoom. We have a support group that we're working on getting together. You know, so we have a lot of things that we're working towards in the organization that is going to start integrating and offering more opportunities for people to have that social interaction that they need, and to help build better awareness on just what's going on.
Yeah, we do have our women's group, you know, every Wednesday, just to kind of talk about one of the things that we're going through. And so we would love to build that. It's me and Karen, you know, host that, and we would love to get as more women involved in it, as just to talk about their feelings and what they're going through.
Great. Good. All good discussions, really good discussions.
If I may, just one more.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's one other group that in the future, and I would say maybe in the next 2 months, we're going to probably do is a mindfulness group, and that can be a really good way to help manage fear. You know, to actually, you know, get in there and see what our expectations are of ourselves, of our community, of our family, of our friends, and what is needed, what we can be with, and to get to a place of accepting, you know, just accepting the reality as it is, and to be okay with that. That's a part of what mindfulness is. And so I'm hoping in the next couple months that we'll have a group out, and then we'll start working with people to work on mindfulness techniques that people can utilize during this time.
I think that's wonderful, Eric. That's such a wonderful strategy and tool for coping. And, you know, if you can, you know, remember, you know, that we are all observers of this world. And if we could, you know, find a way to stay connected, but also continue to be observers as we participate. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. A lot of good ideas for coping. But you know, I wanted to piggyback on something Steve Norton brought up too, is, you know, still staying connected spiritually. And you know, I know there are a lot of different churches or religions or faith-based groups that are doing what is it, online or streamlining or online type of services. So, you know, that is also can be very, very comforting for people to still have that connection, because, you know, there are a lot of churches or congregations or religions that are not holding services in house. And if they are, they're also social distancing so much that it's hard to stay connected, you know. And so thank you for that suggestion, Steve, because that is something that online religious service or online cultural events, like what Annette was talking to the summit today, there are so many things now that we could still do online to continue still having entertainment. And how many people saw Hamilton on Disney channels too? So yeah, so, you know, we still have opportunities to still stay connected in that way. But a suggestion that I wanted to offer too, even for the folks that, you know, have families, is rediscovering activities. One of the things I found in my family, when our oldest daughter comes over with her kids, everybody's like on their phones or iPads or something. And I go, whatever happened to the art of conversation and talking and doing things? You know, it was starting to drive me crazy. And I go, you know what? We're going to start rediscovering activities. So we've been doing dinners together, baking together, doing different board games or puzzles. You know, I'm pulling out and undusting things that I haven't seen in years, because you know, my kids were not into it, but all of a sudden this conversation and laughter and connection, isolation does not have to mean disconnect. And even if we're doing Zoom, you know, like I have weekly discussions with friends or folks over Zoom that I love and cherish and I haven't seen, and I won't be able to see them for however long this takes. But, you know, someone was saying you could have lunches over Zoom and, you know, dinners and discussions and even playing games. You know, my daughter, thank God, is our technology person who is even, you know, putting together games that you could play online too. So that's also important to remember, is to reconnect in different ways.
Speaking of that, we're doing a virtual bingo on the 22nd of August. It'll be our first one trying.
Fabulous. See, that's what I mean. You know, we can still have some fun and connection. That is great.
Yep.
That is great. You know, and I've had more conversation with my 17-year-old daughter than I think I've had in her whole teenage life. Because now we're baking together and doing things, and she can't, you know, I mean, her social distance or physical distancing is clearly has dampened, you know, for a teenager. It really is affecting the teens too, and in such a profound way.
I know when we go out to dinner, we have a rule. You can play on your phone or do whatever until you order dinner. Once dinner is ordered, whoever picks up their phone, they have to pay for dinner.
There you go. I love that.
Mom and Dad are always paying.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try that. Normally, I have a basket now.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
they have to stick their phones in the basket after dinner.
Yeah, put them in the basket.
Yeah. And another thing that I'd like to add too is let's all take a break from the 24-hour news cycle.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yes.
Let's take a break.
Absolutely.
I have so many clients that come in and they are hearing all these different things, and they're constantly, you know, being bombarded with fear. And, you know, I've suggested to them, you know, how about just limiting maybe to 30 to 60 minutes a day? You know, maybe, you know, once or twice a day, go on and look and see what you feel like you need to see once or twice a day for maybe 30 to 60 minutes. But, you know, this constant, you know, 24-hour cycles of just fear. You know, how does anybody feel about that? Is that something that you've instituted? Are you finding that, you know, it's becoming pretty daunting for you as well to be exposed to this much? I think Nanette was saying we just see numbers constantly over and over and over again. And I wonder sometimes if we even get desensitized to the numbers, because we just keep hearing it over and over.
Yep.
And these are people, you know, as you were saying, these are people, they're families. There's a ripple effect to this. And what are some thoughts about that?
I don't watch the news before I go to bed in general, and I haven't for years because it's so depressing. It was depressing before COVID. So I don't think it's good personally to get so much negative before you go to sleep. So for us, again, for years now, we watch the news for a little while in the morning. Especially when things really started, we're definitely watching a little bit throughout the day when they do the updates in the afternoon, but just turn it off for a couple hours before you go to bed. Watch a comedy or something.
Yes.
But I just don't think it's good to put that stuff in your brain before you sleep. That's my opinion. And it's definitely been helpful for years to not have that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It used to be like that. I mean, it used to be like growing up, you had the morning news and you had the evening news, and they're both 1 hour long. And then if 60 minutes happens to be on, then you saw 60 minutes. You know, I mean, it was just, news wasn't occupying our entire life, you know, back before, what, CNN? I think.
Yes. I think CNN started the ball rolling.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was news all the time, everywhere, always. And so, yeah. And yeah, I just look a little bit, you know, I take a couple quick glances, see if there's anything that is like earth shaking, and then I move on, because most of that stuff doesn't involve my daily living. You know what I mean? It doesn't involve me going to the mailbox unless there's something going on the way to the mailbox. So, you know, I know the world's got a lot going on. It just does more than anything I could do. So.
And it definitely triggers anxiety. So there you go. Oh, let's see. We have, looking on the chat. Thank you, Karen, for putting on bingo on the 27th of August. And then Steve.
22nd of August
20,
22nd.
20. Oh, it says 27th. Okay, 22nd.
Yeah. Oops.
All right. And then Steve wrote, there are some great podcasts to listen to so you could avoid 24-hour news cycles. And he just put on a great source. If you could see it at the bottom, it says www.happinesslab.fm/. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Is that based on the happiness study that was done? I mean, is that?
I don't, it's a good question. Steve, if you hear the question, is it based on the happiness study that was done? And we'll see if he answers that.
Or some good news. If you guys have seen that, I think John Krasinski. I think that's
yes. John Krasinski. Yes.
Yeah, he did some good news, and I love watching that one.
Yeah.
I don't think he's doing it anymore, though.
Right, it's got sold out to CBS. The other one is Mike Rowe with I think
Dirty Jobs.
No, I think it's Paying It Forward now, or it's Moving It Forward, or something like that. He has a show. What he does is he finds champions in the community, and then he rewards them by helping them to become better champions in the community by, you know, giving them a need that they have. And it's so uplifting because it shows how our community can come together and help people. You know, people who've done some phenomenal things in our community that don't necessarily get recognized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what Steve's writing here. Dr. Lori Santos from Yale University started a class at Yale on happiness and now does this podcast.
Oh, so it is. Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah. So if anybody has any other things that they want to put on the chat area for, you know, let's share resources, definitely. If you know other resources out there.
I have a podcast that I'm doing called Quadriplegics.
Yes.
And so if anyone's interested in listening to that, I'll just put the name on there. You can Google it.
Yes, please. Yes, do that.
It's uncensored, right, Eric?
It is uncensored. It's adult language, yes. But we do talk about a lot of things. In fact, we just had a conversation about relationships, and we're actually like 3 or 4 episodes talking about relationships and what it is to have a disability and to work with relationships. And so
you need us women on that.
Oh yeah, no, I have LaRonda Hart. She's chiming in on the side of women right now, but we can, you know what we should do is we should open it up, and we should get right now we do about 4 people, but we should open it up and get more people, because it's a good
idea.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's a big topic, and I think some people would really be able to weigh in very well.
Very, very good. Great resources.
Here, Eric.
What?
Could you Zoom it?
That's what we are doing.
Yeah, definitely put down as many things as you can on our chat line for people to share. That's one of the wonderful things about, you know, this type of technology. You're sharing wonderful resources, so please share it for all of us to write down. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna warn people. You know, you want to grab the stuff off of the chat, because after Zoom ends, the chat ends too. So. So if we're recording it, if the recording is for the chat as well, then we may be able to post that. But I'm just saying, if you're interested in any of this stuff, I recommend everyone write it down. You can also go to azspinal.org, which I'm going to put in here right now.
Yes.
And we can take, you know, any questions that you have. If you said, oh, someone mentioned this, I'm sure one of us at the organization could figure it out and get the information to you. So
Karen can go back and listen.
Yeah, you can go back and listen. But you know, these are some really great ideas, and I'm glad that the Spinal Cord Association has everything listed. But all of these are wonderful ways for us to change our mindset about this isolation that we're all experiencing, and to doing some of these different activities and listening to other podcasts. One of the things that I find is that, being exposed to a 24-hour news cycle that's all about negativity is that we're always looking at the worst case scenario. And that breeds fear, it breeds tension, it just, I mean, I cannot believe, for the most part, just most of the clients that I'm talking to now, this is just the top of their mind. It's just creating so much anxiety, so much fear, so much isolation. And we want to be able to say that there are still ways to be connected in a positive way. So thank you so much.
Well,
Yeah,
then in the 24-hour news cycle, Annette, they never tell us how many people recovered.
Yes, you're
They tell us
right.
how many people have died. They
Yes.
never ever say how many people recovered.
And there have been many. There have been many. Yeah, I know. I know. And somebody once told me they shouldn't call it the news. They should just call it, this is the bad news today, folks. Instead of, this is the news, So, but thank you. Great things to share. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and I think Eric is very, very good with this, is, there's also different ways of coping with isolation and anxiety and stress and fears. And this is using mindfulness practices, guided meditation. I know that at the Ability 360, they've done some yoga classes, adaptive yoga. There are just other ways for us to become, physically, emotionally engaged in a positive way. And there are many apps that I know a lot of people work with that allow them to get themselves into a better mind space. And Eric, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but I've seen Eric do a guided meditation that is amazing. And I think people, when they left that session, they felt, this a transformation, a renewing of the spirit. I was wondering, Eric, if you could talk a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so with mindfulness, a couple things that I do when it comes to mindfulness. There's basically two different aspects that I like to focus on when working on a mindfulness situation. One is your daily practice. Now, it comes up to a couple different things, but we talk about stuff like being grateful, having compassion, creating meaning and purpose in one's life, forgiveness. These are all aspects of being able to create a healthy inner space. And then the other thing we focus on is just meditation. What is meditation? How does meditation work? What can it do for you? And how can it relieve some of the inner tensions that you have? And some of mindfulness too is about creating the ability to create a non-judgmental arena in which to exist. So, for example, if I look at these different objects that I'm holding up, they all have different meanings to me, and they all can mean something to me. Well, when we're being mindful, we can say, well, this is just an object. This is just another object. This is just another object. And it's not decreasing its value, but it's decreasing our expectation and our judgment of that value, of being a right or a wrong, or in that context. It still has its function, and we can still acknowledge its function, but we will go ahead and move forward. And in doing that, what we do is we clear a space for our mind, is what we do. We clear the space so that we can expand in our own minds. We can expand the arena that we're working in. Now, we're not hitting these obstacles. Oh, this is bad to go here, or this is good to go here. We're not hitting those obstacles in our mind anymore. And then with some of the meditation, what it does is it's about really observing and acknowledging what exists within. And remember how I said we're going to clear that space? Well, when you're doing the meditation, that's where you really get your money's worth, because now you're really looking at yourself and you're saying, oh, that's right, I have to be non-judgmental. And so you're looking at yourself for what you are, for what it is right here in this moment, and it allows you to take a look at it and not judge it, but observe it. And in doing that, it has the potential to have a transforming effect. And with enough practice, it can actually be a very dynamic effect that could happen for someone. I've seen some people really work through some of their depression, start to work through it. I've seen people who've had anxiety that, and these are two, I would say, general terms that I'm going to use right now, but I've seen a couple people really benefit from this, and it also deepened their experience of the present moment as well. So that's another benefit of being mindful. You know, if we're focused on everything that's going on and you know, what's the future going to bring, or past events that caused this to happen, you know, those can lead into depression and anxiety. And when we're present in the moment, now all I have to do is deal with what I'm doing right here, right now. And when I'm focused on that, that gives me the opportunity to have some relief from that thought process. And so being present can be a real treasure to have in one's life. And so this is some of the stuff that that I really work in. This is very much my wheelhouse. And I use a book. This is one of a couple books that I use, but it's that is showing up in reverse, isn't it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm going to type it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, type it out for
Yeah,
us.
I'll
There you
type
go.
it out in the chat. And this is one that I used. It helps. It's very much a skills-based material. Okay, and this is as a therapist, this is what a therapist would use. So it's going to have a lot of knowledge in it. One of the things that's also nice is there's worksheets that come with this skill-based worksheets, and this is a cognitive behavioral mindfulness. So what this does is this also talks about our thought patterns and how we choose to look at things. You know, if I look at something in this, and let's say every day I go out in the car and I'm like, oh, my car smells. You know, and now I have this thought of, oh, now I expect my car to smell, now it's going to smell, and every day it gets worse for me, you know. And so with this type of with cognitive therapy, you can actually refrain what it is you're wanting to encounter in your life, even though if it's the same event. So I go into my car and it's not what smells, it's, oh, look, you know, my car's not hot today. You know, I can choose what I want to pay attention to. That's another thing. What we choose to pay attention to becomes stronger. So if I'm always focusing on negative stuff, it's the negative that's always going to come to my mind. And naturally, biologically, we're designed to do that, by the way. So it is a struggle, but when we look at the positive, when we look at aspects that we can be grateful for, then that can lead us into an upward spiral of mental health. So I'm going to go ahead and type this book in there so that you guys know which one I'm going to go for. But when the class starts, I'll be using this book, and then I'll be using the forums on there, and I'll be able to disseminate the forums to everyone as well. So
yeah, thank you, Eric. That's great. I wanted Eric to really talk a bit about that, because I think the forum that he will be hosting is going to be a useful tool for all of us, because again, you know, the mindset that's out there, and we've seen it with this pandemic and the social isolation. We want to get into a positive mindset.
When is Eric's class starting on the forum?
I am still getting prepared for that, but I do hope to start within the next month or so. So that's something I'm just getting all my ducks in a row, and when I have that, then I'll be doing that.
And that'll be on the website, and of course,
Yep.
you'll be sending invitations and everything.
Yep. I'll put on my Facebook. We'll put on on Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Facebook. I'm going to put on a couple other group followings, and we're going to have it on the website. So make sure to check the website because that always has our stuff on there of what we're going to do. And then anyone that I know that's interested too, I can go ahead and just send you an actual link and say, hey, we're going to start this up. So if you do have an interest, in fact, do this. This would be the best for me. If you send it to my email at eric@azspinal.org, I will go ahead and make sure that you know when that's going to occur. I did just put the book on there, and then I put my email directly below the book that
Okay,
we're
perfect.
using.
Good, good. And to also, oh, go ahead, Karen.
I was gonna say, we'll put it in the newsletter too.
Okay.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was gonna, okay, good, good. I was gonna say, as long, you know, we got to get that word out to as many people as possible in our community and beyond too.
Yep. Yep.
Will they need the book? Will they need the book for the class? Or
No, the book is mainly for therapeutic use. I will be providing all the, so in the book it has some of the forms in there, but really I have them as a PDF, and as an owner of this book and a social worker, I'm allowed to disseminate the forms to people. And so we have exercises for each class, and it's an 8-series class. Now I'm going to expand on that a little bit because I'm going to talk about things like intent, what intent means and how it can be utilized in your meditative practice. So there's a couple other exercises that I've incorporated that I find useful. The one exercise that I did with Annette at our conference, that's another thing I'm going to be utilizing, because what it is, that exercise in itself helps people to know what it is to let go and to give themselves that temporary relief and to know what that feels like, because it's amazing how much we forget about how good we can feel. It's amazing. It's like we lose our memory when it comes to feeling good, and we lose our memory to things that we once had. And so this is about bringing it back a little bit and allowing yourself just to be. So that's what I'm working towards, and I hope people will.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure we'll all be there because I think it's going to be wonderful. Thank you for putting the information down too. And if I could also add to what Eric's saying too, taking care of ourselves is also important during a time like this, you know, during this pandemic. And social isolation is, sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. So sleeping, making sure we eat properly, and you know that our diet and exercise are still important part of our self-care plan. I'm hearing a lot of complaints from folks that they're gaining a lot of weight with the social isolation stuff because there's not a lot to do. But I think what Steve Norton said was he developed structure in his life. He found a way to have structure, and more than likely we need to make sure part of that structure is our self-care, and not forget that we still need to eat properly, we need to exercise, we need to take care of ourselves. And that's also an important part of coping and dealing with the isolation we experience. And also, you know, to take action. I can't stress that enough, but take action and help others. You know, give support to people. You know, I know, you know, a lot of folks are, you know, part of these volunteer work where they they make phone calls to people who are isolated, you know, and it comes from different churches too, or different groups that are doing outreach. I know the Foundation for Senior Living, for example, you know, there's some opportunities to still do some volunteer work where you're just reaching out, making a phone call and just saying, how are you doing today? What do you need? How can we help you? You know, what resources can we give you to provide? Because there are so many people that are isolated and don't have access. They just don't have access. And another thing, taking action too, is remembering that again, we're in this together as a community, but I always look at opportunities to educate. You know, do we can argue with each other and fight with each other, or do we educate? And that's becoming more of those reliable sources, or finding those reliable sources to get the right information into our community. And I think Steve was saying that people have like an ADA card that says that they don't have to wear a mask, which is a fallacy. It is not true. You know, so we want to have the right information and make sure people have the right information. And I know that one of the best resources is the Spinal Cord Injury Association or the Brain Injury Alliance, or, you know, different offices that will give us the information that's out there and the resources that are available. And then, you know, a next way of coping that I wanted to share too is getting professional help if you need it. And that means talking to a counselor or talking to a friend, or getting involved in a support group. If you feel that you are struggling through this isolation, know that we are still connected as people. And the support groups are out there. And I'm happy Steve, Eric, and I are doing a support group, but they are there, they are available. The women's group, the men's group. There are opportunities for us to still stay connected and offer each other support and get the support we need. But one of the things that I worry about for folks is that when they're so isolated and so alone, they feel that there are no choices. And unfortunately, we've seen an escalation in suicide through this as well. So this pandemic is much more of a public health issue. It is also, as we were saying earlier, a mental health issue. I think Annette talked about it. Mental health needs to be addressed as well. And that's where we, again, as a group, could take action and make sure that if you know anyone that is struggling, if you hear of anyone, if you yourselves or ourselves feel this disconnection, is that we have an obligation to ourselves to take care of ourselves and to get the help we need. So,
Annette, I'd like to add on to that.
Please.
Feel free to email me. If you know someone that needs to have a talk with someone, or if you need to talk with someone, I really would like you to feel free to email me at eric@azspinal.org, and I will follow up, and we'll have a conversation, and if need be, I can also find resources to help people get where they need to go. So, you know, I would like to be, well, I am available as a resource for people to reach out to, and we'll figure it out. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Thank you. And Karen and Annette are great resources. And I've also put my email down there too. And if anybody else wants to add, you know, I think we've developed a nice little support network here in this group. So feel free if you are comfortable to share your information with each other. And another way to take action is to stay connected. I know we only have about 2 more minutes left. I don't know if anyone has any closing comments to say, but I just want to add how much I've enjoyed this afternoon. And thank you so much for coming on and joining the Spinal Cord Injury Association, and thanking also the association for putting forums like this together. It has been, you know, a one way for us to stay connected, and how important is that? And I think we all today talked about it. You know, why is this important? And each one of you had brought some valuable, wonderful resources to the table, as well as ideas for coping, as well as sharing. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Any last comments from anyone?
Thank you, Annette, for all you do for our community. You're awesome.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate you having this talk.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
And if anybody's interested in being a peer mentor, we're always looking for peer mentors we have our next one is in September for having peer mentors. So it's really important.
Is that on the website too, or do they?
Yeah, we do have
directly?
a flyer for that.
Yeah, you can email to either Sharon or I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put my email up there.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Everybody who's put their emails up. Thank you. Okay.
And that would be great, because this is the time that we need them, and people do need the support. So, so they're getting the double whammies, that they are being newly injured and then now in the isolation as well. So,
Yes, it's awful. I know. It's heartbreaking when, you know, I'm getting referrals from people who are newly injured or injured, you know, within this pandemic, and their families can't go in and see them. You know, it's heartbreaking.
heartbreaking.
You know? Yes, it is. So I'm really appreciative that the physicians have been mindful of sending them to a therapist. You know, the families now are coming to see someone because they are struggling of not being able to see their son or daughter, husband or wife who have been injured and are in the hospital or in rehab, you know?
Yeah.
So
They're just not knowing, you know, is hard. It's hard for a lot of people.
yeah.
And as a mom, I would be like, I don't care. I'm getting into that damn hospital. I don't care what I need to do. If I have to disguise myself as a nurse, I'm gonna be there. But you know, as the mama cub, that's just, you know, I can't even imagine not being with my children if something were to happen to them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we need services like yours. So.
Annette here. One of the things that I hope that none of you will need this, but it might be helpful for you to know about. We were really fortunate to find a support group called Grief Share, and obviously related to my stepson's death. But we actually have a gentleman in there right now whose wife has late stage Alzheimer's, and he's going through the Grief Share program right now. It is faith-based. It's 13 weeks. It comes with a book and some fantastic videos that you watch each week. You have like homework every day that you can work on. But I'm telling you, it's been incredibly valuable to us to go through this journey because, you know, unless you've been through something like that, you just, it's difficult. It's put it this way, it's really difficult to talk to people who are going through the same thing. And so hopefully you've not lost somebody, but obviously we all have at some point. I know, Annette, you were just talking about you've already lost 5 more.
Yes.
So it's just something to consider. Again, it's called Grief Share, and it's been incredibly beneficial. So maybe something to consider if you know anybody who needs it.
Thank you.
Can you
Good
send
resource.
us, info on it, Nanette?
Yeah, I think it's griefshare.org. Let me look here.
Okay, I hope everybody's written down all of these different resources because Eric let us know that once we say goodbye, they disappear. So, but we still have Karen and Eric as wonderful resources. So if you missed any of this, I'm sure they can help you. Okay. Well, I think I'll turn this back to you, Karen. Is there anything else we need to do before we say goodbye?
I can't think of anything offhand. Just thank you again, everyone, for coming. And if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out.
Yeah. Or if you know someone who needs
If you know
help,
someone.
yeah, reach, make sure that let people know they're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
okay
not
with
in
it.
All
this.
here.
You can just give a stranger my email. I'm fine with it. So.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, same here.
Good people. You guys are good people.
We
All
try.
right. All right, everyone. Well, have a great evening, great weekend. And we will see you again at the mindfulness training or
Sounds
forum.
good.
All right. Bye-bye,
All right,
everyone.
take care.
Thank you.
Great
All
one.
right, bye.
Everybody.
I can kick everybody out, or if anybody wants to stay, you're welcome to.
I just sent a message over to Annette. I think she's gone though.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No worries. Thank you guys so much. Karen,
Yeah,
thanks for
thank
the
you.
invite.
Yeah, thank you. I wish I'd have known about your, somehow I missed the ADA thing.
Oh, yeah, we've been posted all over
Yeah.
Facebook, and our Ask Accessible Seating Club fan page, our own pages. It went out through ACDL, ACDHH, just a bunch of them. But we had over 1,000 people just on Facebook Live, and then
Wow.
Oh, wow.
100 people register for the Zoom class. Representative Jennifer Longden did the opening. Phil Pangrazio did the final and a call to action. Jake Rico spoke at the end. And then in between that, we had scheduled 8 individuals with various types of disabilities, and not the typical people that we usually hear from, but these were sort of
Awesome.
unknowns, but other people who are not, who don't do that as often.
Right.
And so I did some prep with them. They each had 3 to 5 minutes to talk about their story, how the ADA has impacted them. And then there was public comments. So Daryl Christensen spoke, Ron Brooks. I'm completely spacing. There was 2 others.
Did it feature the posters? Because I know I did a poster for what the ADA meant to me with Polly, and our group did.
If you go to Karen, if you go to my Facebook fan page, or just simply our Facebook page, or the Accessible Seating Club page, the whole recording is right there, so you can watch the whole thing. It was a little over 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
You can kind of do whatever you want, but it was good. There was such a positive response of how great it was to hear from people sharing their stories. So it really did. It went fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Okay.
All right, y'all take care.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, bye.